Yo, what's up, y'all? We out here back again. Ngoriako Corey Johnson. Welcome to the channel. We out here taking a step ahead, trying to get 3 degrees buffer. And, being back in Tennessee has been good. I was able to hang out with my folks today for the afternoon, and we had a pretty interesting discussion. It centered on like Christianity, Adventism, God's love, these concepts. And what I find so interesting about it was, we talked a little bit about how you've heard the stories that I've told about what it was like for me growing up as a Christian. Obviously, my parents are a big part of that. So hearing them talk to me about hearing the stories that I'm telling from my perspective, it's been really cool to see how they process that, but also kind of in hindsight, seeing where they're looking back at it and saying, man, I wonder if we could have done it this way, or why did we do things this way? And something that you learn in retrospect is people teach the way that they're taught. So the influences that are around a certain people in a certain place and time are generally the influences that you'll be able to pick up in the ways that people are learning and the ways that people are teaching in similar spaces or very subsequent times and spaces. For example, we had maybe 4 or 5 different pastors at the church where I grew up. One of them actually had been a missionary out in Africa before that and would return to be a missionary after the time that he was a pastor and serving that church there in Virginia. But very specifically under his time as a preacher and as the pastor there, I remember us engaging a lot with the community. We would go out to the community center. We played dodgeball with the boys and the young people from the community with the church, and the church members would be there too. Really cool experience that I remember specifically because I don't remember anything else like that happening with any of the other pastors that we had. And a lot of the other ones, they would be focusing on things like present truth, the prophecies, trying to figure these things out, who's the mark of the beast, all these kind of things. The 666, y'all know the drill, right? But it's interesting because what it all comes down to is, if I say that I'm a follower of Christ and I'm looking at especially the Christmas season, I can't even think of the song. What does it say? Peace and good news and good something to all men. I don't remember the song. But the idea is that Jesus coming to earth here, Christ the babe, is supposed to be good news. Now, if Jesus coming here is good news and everything that Jesus was about in his life here was about bringing good news to people, why is it that when Christians talk to people today, it's often not received as good news? I think it's really interesting because around this time of year, people are more open to the idea of Jesus, the baby, Joseph and Mary, the wise men, the shepherds, the little setups they do. I forget what they're called. But you see them outside of churches, you see them at schools, you see plays, you see all this kind of thing. People are open to this idea because it's almost like at its very inception or at the core of what Jesus was about. It was about good news. And yet, when Christians spend a lot of time talking to other people, they don't get that feel good kind of spirit that you do around Christmas, do you? A lot of it's doom and gloom and, oh, you're this and that, so you're going to hell and all this kind of stuff. And the good news aspect of it seems to just hover around Christmas time and then disappear throughout the rest of the year. Oh, it comes back, but people plug in then and then they unplug once the new year hits, right? In talking to my parents, it's obviously they're older, and a lot of older people tend to be kind of stuck in their ways or pretty confident and comfortable with the places that they've made it through as a result of their life's journey and experience. But it was really refreshing to hear my parents talk about, like, man, this idea of God's love and what does it really mean to be a follower of Christ? What should we really be doing? You know what? We need to be out there just being good people to other people. It was so cool and refreshing to hear that, because a lot of Christianity is go to church, do this, do that, and you do these things the right way and you're good. But again, going back to the simplicity of Christ and you look at his life, it had to be good news that Jesus was here. Why? Because when you look at his life, it was about sharing this good news with everybody. To a woman caught in adultery, He didn't condemn her, but ended up actually saving her life from the people who wanted to take it. For lepers and people who were outcast from society, they ended up finding healing and hope because of him. His coming was to them good news. To a Samaritan woman who was not only a woman, but also looked down for being a Samaritan as an inferior race kind of a thing, like half-breed type thing. She felt like her interaction with Jesus was good news brought to her. She embraced that. To a demon-possessed man, to the disciples, to just about everyone except the Pharisees. There were a couple good ones, so to speak, Nicodemus and eventually Paul. But, everybody saw Jesus as good news. And you think about it, right? There's two laws that Jesus sums up the entirety of the law and the prophets, as he says. You have love God with everything you got. And the second one, which is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. And when you think about what God is trying to do for us, with us, through us, it's pretty awesome to think that he puts this in there to make us think, wait a second. Yeah, love God with everything that you have, but what's the tie-in? How do you do that? It's by loving other people the way that you love yourself. And if we understand from God's love for us how we should view ourselves, then what God is really saying is you should see other people the same way that you understand I see you. We become the extension of God's love towards us. And that's good news, because it means that every single person out there, regardless of where they come from, what they believe, what they think, what they look like, everybody can receive the good news and hear it as good news. A thought that I've kind of had in my mind for a while is this thing that we call good news. We can only call it that if it's received as good news. I can't portray it as something that's only good to me and think that I can call it good news and brand it that, and it's going to be good news for everybody else too. It takes a little bit more depth and looking for how to relate to those other people to make the news good news to them. Otherwise, it's just news, right? You think about all the different things going on in the media today. There's a lot of stories with this side against that side, and a story will come out and it's good news for one side, but not for the other side, right? It's just news, and bad news at that. And sometimes the way that even the story of Christ is portrayed, and even with all the love that he had and came down here to share with us, even that can be portrayed as bad news because of how people approach it and how people choose to talk about it and share that. And it's probably one of the biggest missed opportunities, one of the biggest travesties, that a story so pure and about something so simple about God's love for us could be taken as bad news because some people look at it in a different way and they portray it to the exclusion of others, when Jesus was really trying to say this is for everybody and being inclusive of others. So, when you think about this season, 'tis the season, right? Jesus is the reason for the season. You hear all these things. You sing all these songs that deal with Jesus being born and coming to earth and everybody being happy about that. That same happiness and joy that we have at this time should be something that expands out throughout the entire year, because it's always good news. And Jesus' coming doesn't only impact us around Christmas time. It's something that should impact all of us through all time. So, yeah, just a little something to think about in this season. And again, it was really cool catching up with my folks and talking with them, seeing how open they are to this idea of saying, you know what? Maybe a lot of these things that we focused on before, maybe they're not as important. Still important, but not as important as just showing somebody else God's love. And if that's all you can do as a follower of Christ, is show someone else God's love, if you don't have all the 66 books of the Bible memorized, if you don't know all the history of this and this and that, if you don't know anything from anybody else, if you don't know where to find that specific Bible verse, if all you can do in this season is show somebody that God loves them, and maybe even not say it, but show them, if that's all you can do, then you've done more than enough. And you've made good news actually good news. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. You know how we roll. Like, subscribe, and share. And we out. Peace.